Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to another Power of Myth and Symbolism in Star Wars. We are going to be releasing these two episodes back to back, so you've just literally heard one. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me today, and mostly always, is Ty Black.
Hello! Yay! I'm here because Marie-Claire could not get this thought out of her head and she needed to record.
We only recorded a couple of weeks ago, and we don't record maybe every month, maybe every second month.
Yeah.
Kind of on I think this is like our 9th episode, so maybe 10th, somewhere in there. Kind of far along with these. We've done a fair amount of topics, but this one has possessed me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Possessed me. And it was because of the conversation we had last time on Power of Myth and Symbolism about the Minotaur and the Labyrinth, and how Josh Johnson, who came on the show to really talk about this myth, expressed that the Minotaur and the Labyrinth and the next generation of that myth from a sort of storytelling perspective, according to Joseph Campbell, is Tristan and Isolde, which, if you know anything about Joseph Campbell, that was one of his favorite romantic myths. It's really fascinating that he gravitates towards this one in particular, and there's several reasons to do with courtly love, to do with the concept that love is more important than the person that you marry or that you're tied to. And Campbell talks about this actually on Power of Myth with Bill Moyer. So if you're ever interested to see what he has to say, it's just available on Netflix. You can take it out from your library. Like, it's pretty much everywhere now. People have consumed this a lot, right?
Yeah.
The Power of Myth.
I believe it's transcribed online as well. So if you look for it, you can find it.
And you can just like Control F Tristan, and you'll find what he has to say on Tristan and Isolde. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this, but we're going to talk about what is considered to be the almost mythology at rhymes of what is this story saying? This episode is going to be called The Dark Union and the Divine Couple.
Yay!
Because there's some really cool things that are going on and how it might answer the questions that we are going to propose in a minute, including one of them is, how does the sequel trilogy end? How do you wrap up this whole story? How do you make it make sense? That's the question, the main question. But we're going to ask some different ones first.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny that obviously this was kicked off by the most recent
sizzle reel.
The sizzle reel.
D23,
yeah. And all of the talk that's happened around that, even though it's so funny because we didn't actually get that much more additional footage from it compared to what we got from the teaser that we had back on Celebration. But some of the images did something to our brains, like collectively as Reylos, and it split our Reylo community in two for a short period of time, I think, until everyone started coming to similar conclusions.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the plot is, right? It doesn't matter like what's actually happening. Like, oh, this would be cool to see. This would be interesting if this happened. At the end of the day, we all kind of collectively came to some weird understanding of what it meant for the characters and what it meant for the saga.
And I'm going to say that this episode is very much on the backs of amazing Reylos out there that have been doing meta, who have been thinking about this stuff for 4 years.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Because like some of the things we're going to bring up in this episode are the things that are talked about. Oh, hey, that was brought up, but it wasn't brought up ever. I searched a lot. It was never brought up from this angle. And first and foremost, I started asking myself these questions before the sizzle reel came out because of the conversations that you had just listened to on this last episode, all about the Minotaur and Tristan and Isolde.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what is it about these myths? What is happening?
Yeah, it's not
myths?
Just this, like, it's not just like this dark monster husband idea. It's not just like this Beauty and the Beast, and it's not just about these two people. There's something else going on here in these myths.
Yes, there is something else going on, and we're gonna walk the path with you. And this theory has stewed, and thank you, Ty, for bearing with me as I thought through all of the variables and basically iterated it to think through all of the things. And there are still gaps. There are things that I will not be able to tell you, like why C-3PO's eyes are red in the sizzle reel. I have no idea. I'm anxious about it. I will think about it and see if I have the brain power to get to what that could mean for the character. But I don't know yet. So there's definitely gaps. I don't know the plot. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know the structure that they seem to be pointing to, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is our first question that we're going to ask the audience, Ty? This is a good one. This is one that literally is at the heart of the fandom confrontations that we see, where people are like, Kylo Ren is a monster.
Yeah. Kylo Ren's the villain.
What?
Main bad guy.
Shock. No, he baby. No. Kylo Ren is the villain, right? He's the supreme leader.
Yeah. And the biggest question for Reylos has always been like, well, how do you make him the romantic hero? And Reylos have always been very open-minded to this, just like they've been open-minded.
It'll happen.
Dark Ray thing. Yeah. It'll just happen. Like, and not only it'll just happen, but it's already happening. Which, I mean, like if you're a Reylo, like,
that's what his conflict theme is all about in his music, is that he is conflicted. There's all this visual imagery of the light coming in on him. He has these moments of genuine human interaction with Rey, and he's on the path. It'll happen.
Just stick in there.
I have a good friend. She said to me, I don't know how it can happen in one movie. Yeah,
because there's this idea that, like, if you believe in Bendemption, if you believe he's going to be redeemed, you might not necessarily mean that it's going to be a romantic Reylo.
So how do you, turn him from villain, mustache twirling, evil, into what we see him on at the Vanity Fair, shots that we see him as this Byronistic romantic hero. He looks like a romantic hero. They have made him look like a knight, a courtly lover, a Regency era Darcy. He looks like these tropes.
Yeah.
Right. Our romantic hero is not a romantic hero yet in many people's eyes. So how do you turn him into a hero?
Okay,
this is the question. No, this is and you're probably like with us. You're like, what? How? I don't know. How do you make? It's a long way, and you have to spend a lot of time where he's like making changes and choices and turning against. Obviously, it's got to do with Palpatine, right? Like, because he's the really big bad guy.
Yeah. So the idea is the kind of the more surface level idea. Oh well, Palpatine's the bad guy. As soon as we heard him laugh in like the first teaser that we got.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, Bendemption is solid. Bendemption is solid, not Reylo. Bendemption is solid. Bendemption's going to happen because Palpatine is the actual bad guy and they have to team up to fight him. That's like this understood thing now. But the constant question nagging people's mind was, well, yeah, they might be able to fight Palpatine, but in all of these teasers, they keep fighting each other. How are they going to be romantic Reylo at the end of this? How is this going to happen?
Or explicit Reylo, as some people.
Explicit,
right?
Yes.
Because I just even answered a Twitter quiz about that. I'm like, it's going to be explicit Reylo because this is the story that they are telling.
Yeah, and Marie-Claire, I think you messaged me and you said, this is how they're going to do it. This is how they're going to make Kylo a romantic hero. And I was like, oh my God, that's so simple because we've literally seen it in every single Disney film ever.
It is the Disney answer to fairy tale. I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat. Like, you're like, how are they going to do it?
Why are we milking this for so long?
I don't know. Dramatic purposes, like Lucasfilm has basically milked this for so long too.
Yeah. There you go. Good point.
Good point. Okay. So the next question we ask is, what does Palpatine want? Because I see a lot of, Palpatine does these things, right? He does these things. He is always prepared. He sees the future. He has contingencies out the wazoo. He really likes to have, apprentices. My apprentice. That's my best Palpatine. Sorry.
Bad.
No, he always has these partners because the dark side is lonely and the dark side wants company.
Yes.
Right? The dark side always wants company. And he has tried with Maul and Dooku and Anakin. He has tried. He's tried every single apprentice out there Wait a second. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. He has not tried every type of apprentice out there. Because the question of the universe, as we see with the symbolism out there in the sequel trilogy, and, we're going to talk about what we see inside of the story itself a little bit in a bit. But if we think about, back to Mortis, there is a woman and a man who are the power of the galaxy that represent light and dark. And Palpatine wants what Palpatine always wants: ultimate control and ultimate power. He says it himself, ultimate power. He says that all the time. This is what he wants. He seeks relics. He seeks things. So what does that mean in the Star Wars universe? It means he wants to be the Force.
Yeah.
He wants to be a god. We know that he can't be a god alone. There is two sides to the Force. There is two sides to the will, and there's the living Force and the will of the Force, the cosmic Force. There's two sides to these things. We already know in the sequel trilogy, there are two halves of the same protagonist. So Rey has something unique amongst those two halves. What is it? What is it? What? I don't know what it is. What is it?
I haven't heard you explain it like this, but she's, first of all, she's a woman.
Yes.
Is that the only of all? No. Yeah, no, she's literally the opposite of Palpatine.
She is literally the opposite of Palpatine. Yeah, she's young. She is beautiful.
Yeah.
She is
a woman.
Loyal, a woman.
Yeah, she cares about life.
She cares about life. She is life. Who is death in the galaxy?
Plagueis.
You mean Sidious?
I love his name though. Sorry, because plague.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
Sidious.
I mean, Dave Filoni, George Lucas will tell you that Darth Sidious is the manifestation of the devil in the galaxy. He is the ultimate evil. Okay, let's go back to this myth.
She's gonna keep milking it.
No. I'm going to go back to, what is it about this myth? Because this myth is not just Tristan and Isolde.
Right.
It's also an offshoot of Tristan and Isolde, Swan Lake.
Right.
In both of these stories, and in the list we're going to read you, because we started just coming up with them and we had to stop because there was too many. There is the two intended. In Tristan and Isolde, it's Mark and Isolde who are marrying for power. And what happens is, as Tristan is sent to fetch Isolde to bring to Mark, fate intervenes and they fall in love. In Swan Lake, the magician wants to marry Odette. Odette is trapped under a curse with all of the other swans on the lake. Fate intervenes. She meets the prince, Siegfried. He goes by another name and some other versions of it, Derek in Swan Princess. And they fall in love, really preventing the evil old and or magician controlling the feminine.
Yeah. So this is crazy because every iteration of this story, of this myth, the person, the individual that wants to marry the heroine, like you just said, is evil, is a magician,
or old,
or old, or all three, or
some combination. It is the evil old magician.
Yeah. And with Palpatine,
he's all of them.
Literally all of them. And I think that's kind of how you came to this, because what does Palpatine want? And if he is an evil old magician,
he wants to marry the young maiden to control her power.
Yeah. And you know, like before, because when you first told me this, I literally thought you were crazy. Like I was like, Marie-Claire's lost it. Like, oh my God, she's totally got off the deep end. Like
I'm just sorry. Kidding. But the mythological parallels are there and they don't lie in Star Wars.
Because the question has been for so long, why Palpatine? Why is he coming back? And I said this to somebody, I responded to them on Twitter recently. I was like, well, because Palpatine is literally the dark side. Like he represents everything about the dark side. Of course he would be the ultimate villain. But he
represents greed and control.
Yeah.
That is the dark side.
But it goes even further than that. It's not just like him representing the dark side is great from a story perspective, but from a mythological perspective, how does he affect Ben and Rey? And there's been this idea that for a long time that he wants Ben.
Everybody thinks he wants Ben, but I don't think he wants Ben at all. I think he's annoyed by the Skywalkers. I think he has discarded the Skywalkers like he discards every one of his former apprentices, and he is finally trying something new.
Yeah, Anakin was too much of a pain in his backside. He's like...
He couldn't even keep his limbs on.
Anakin killed him. If Kylo's like this reincarnation of Anakin in a way,
yes.
If that is symbolically or literally,
he doesn't want him around. Exactly. He's in the way, and fate is putting Kylo in the way of the dark, evil old magician from getting his bride.
Yep.
So let's go through the list because I think it's important to tell these were just us brainstorming today.
Yeah. There's a lot more than this.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Isis, Osiris, and Set. That's one. We're going to pull that one back. I'm going to bring that one back because...
Yeah, that one needs a lot of explanation because it ties into reincarnation as well.
Beauty and the Beast and Gaston. Gaston being the evil guy that wants to possess the maiden. I've seen Beauty and the Beast be brought up. We brought it up. We brought it up in our fairy tale episode, but we never talked about who Gaston is.
No.
We never thought about that.
No, because it didn't matter at the time. It was like, oh, this is Beauty and the Beast. This is about the woman and the monster husband. Like,
no, but it's about the control of the feminine and the beast, the potential monster, is not actually monstrous. He's just in disguise. He's under a curse.
Yes.
Right?
He has to learn. He has to
learn.
He has to grow up. Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast really does follow this trope, really, or this concept very well.
Yeah.
Dracula follows this as well. Dracula seeks the maiden that is reborn from his former love, and she falls in love with the young gentleman.
So, and Dracula and Phantom of the Opera are kind of similar in this case because they present this lover that is potentially that monster, but the one that becomes like the actual lover is the better.
In the third act.
In the third act, yeah. It becomes
they have flirtations, right?
Yep.
They have flirtations through it, but it is in the end that lover is the one who wins the heart of the heroine, reminding her of who she is. And fandom is a sticky one for the Reylo community in general. They've seen this one, a lot of the darkness and stuff like that, but they always assumed Eric the Phantom was Kylo. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There is something more evil always about the evil old magician.
Right.
Right? He wants to control the heroine and pull her into the darkness with him. Possess, control, not subsume, control.
So there was this thing I was thinking about before we move on from this particular one, because there's this weird thing about how a lot of these men that end up with the heroine have like childhood memories with them.
Yeah, they do.
So a lot of them, like, okay, they're like, they grow up and then they become kind of annoying and they become stupid and they are monsters or they're just idiots.
And they have to grow up a lot.
But they have memories of being children together. And so I wonder if there's going to be kind of a explanation of how Kylo, or, you know, how Ben kind of said, what girl, that all of that. Maybe that'll come out in a childhood memory of seeing each other, and that connection will be established to give us that, hey, I knew you when you were a child.
Yeah, or they had dreams of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways.
No, that's great. This is the funniest one, and then I'm going to bring up one other one, and then we can move on. But yes. Mario, Peach, and Bowser.
Yeah, that was a funny one to me, because I was like, so this is where
how do you turn a plumber into a romantic hero? Not that plumbers aren't awesome.
This is where I think that people are going to have an issue with this trope, because Mario is always used as a, like, we shouldn't keep doing this to our heroines. Like, you shouldn't have to just pass a bunch of levels to deserve the heroine, to deserve the princess, right?
But she becomes a hero of her own in later games.
I love how you're so quick to give the excuse. It's great. No,
because she becomes a partner of Mario in later games. They corrected the myth with different iterations of Mario.
It's literally what they're doing with the sequel trilogy.
Yes, they are correcting the myth. This is important. Keep that tagged in your brain.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up this one because George Lucas wrote this one.
Oh, yeah. Do it.
Roland, Marianne, and the Bog King from Strange Magic. And lots of people in the Reylo community have brought up Strange Magic and the comparison of the Bog King to our hero, Kylo, and Marianne.
No one ever talks about Roland.
No one ever talks about Roland. Why aren't we bringing up the romantic rival? It's so weird for us. We totally had this blind spot that we missed out who the romantic rival is. And I think that maybe it's because he's been hidden, right? I think it's because he hasn't been talked about at all. People haven't brought him up.
Yeah.
Right? And now we know. Now we know he's the romantic rival. It all clicks into place.
Yeah, it's definitely clicking into place.
It's so weird that I'm talking about Palpatine, Mr. Emperor Sheev Palpatine, Darth Sidious as a romantic rival. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. I'll just highlight a few of my favorite ones without going into it far.
Aladdin.
Jafar. Yeah, you got Aladdin. Yeah, you got
evil old magician.
Yeah. You got yes, you put in here a series of unfortunate events, like, obviously, like a good one. But three of my favorite ones that I was thinking about today, like, literally, like, three of my favorite movies of all time have this, which is A Knight's Tale.
Yes.
Moulin Rouge. Oh my God. And Ever After.
Yes. And it is also Cinderella, but that particular story has the old, like, guy that wants to buy and marry Cinderella or Ella.
Yeah. And what's great is that one in Ever After actually shows us of the idea that, like, she doesn't get saved by the hero.
She rescues herself.
Herself. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to my idea in my head that, like, this will be a Ben and Rey saving each other from Palpatine, and Ben is, like, justified. Like, he basically becomes the romantic hero through his act of saving her, but she also will save herself because they're going to need each other. They're
going to need each other because they are together. They are the divine couple. In these stories, they are the couple. They are the couple that is being tormented by the evil old magician. Okay, so I'm gonna set the stage, and I'm gonna say at some point, because Star Wars is not above monologuing, especially Darth Sidious level monologuing. Phantom Menace, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge. Sorry, that was my Maul. They sound all similar to me. I'm sorry. But no, he's talking with Darth Sidious, Maul, and they're like, we're going to reveal ourselves. Yes. They talk about their plot in front of the audience.
Yeah.
So imagine Palpatine. We see him, we see that there is a desire to capture Rey, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason is because Palpatine is interested in her in a possessive, not that she's going to be possessed, but that she is objectified as a thing that he can control, lustful, potentially because of her power, way. Mm-hmm. So this could be he actually wants to marry her, or he wants her as as his apprentice and in some sort of union between the two.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what's going to happen, but this makes sense. So he wants to control the feminine. When that happens on screen, this answers our first question. What do you think the audience is going to do when they see potentially a semi-redeemed Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, up against a romantic rival in the shroud of the evil old magician Palpatine, who is creepy, possessive, and we've seen how he was with Luke. Can you imagine him being that way with Rey? We saw a glimpse, and this is where my argument that the throne scene with Snoke is actually just foreshadowing for what we're going to get with Palpatine. We saw a glimpse of what that would be like for the audience to experience this creepy old man desiring young Rey. Everybody was cheering for Kylo to cut him in half because they want him to kill him.
Yeah. And a lot of men didn't understand what women saw in that scene, I have to say, because a lot of women saw literally a woman being violated by Snoke and saw the difference between Snoke and Ben right away.
We're going to come back to this scene in a little bit because I think it's important to talk about Palpatine's influence throughout the movies. Do you think that we've covered that this myth is like one of the most popular storytelling structures in fairy tale, especially?
Yeah. And I want to say, like, to kind of go back to like where it comes from and like why the Tristan and Isolde and why the Minotaur myth are so important is that, like, for men, this is going into what do I need and why do I need it and what is my purpose in life. And like Kylo has this thing constantly. What is my purpose? Like Kylo doesn't. This is one of the things I told you on Messenger when we were talking back and forth about this was that, well, it fits because one of the other reasons, one of the many reasons why it fits is that we know that Ben doesn't want power, right?
No.
Ben is not looking for ultimate power like Palpatine always was. Ben was always looking for a purpose. He was always looking for a reason to be and
to exist.
To exist. And there's like there's that darkness inside of him that was eating away at him. That's why a lot of people can relate to him. Why am I here? What am I doing? Like, why do I exist? Why are my parents this way? Why do I feel different? What's inside of me? And that's why he's so relatable. But like, honestly, this myth of looking to the feminine, when it's told in this way, it kind of goes beyond what these other stories presented, which was always that, oh, this is the hero and this is his reward.
Yes. This
goes
is not that.
No, it goes in, it's the same trope, but it's being done in a way that's saying like, hey, this young man is literally looking for purpose in his life. And it's not that it's a woman, it's that he's found his inner feminine. Like he's literally found someone who can save him from his own inner darkness because he does have that inside of him. And it reminds him of what's inside of him that was given to him by his parents, that was given to him by the goodness that he was born with. And that's like, it's so meaningful and it gives him so much purpose and it gives him so much like drive. I don't see it becoming any other thing, like
we see this a lot in femme gaze storytelling.
Yeah.
So Pride and Prejudice, right? When he is challenged by the feminine and has to almost come to the rescue of the whole Bennett family to save them from Wickham, which is literally like wicked, which is fascinating, right? Like he is an evil man, Wickham.
Yeah.
When Darcy is challenged by the feminine, he botches the proposal. He screws it up and he goes back and he thinks about his purpose. He thinks about what he should be and he is inspired by the feminine. That's the key. Yeah. That's the thing, that missing feminine, right? We've talked about it a lot. Our shadow episode, we've talked about it in our femme gaze episode. The missing feminine, his ability to connect and have compassion for others but also the power, the wickedness, the exuberance, the drive to succeed.
You could say that seeking out the feminine for men is actually seeking out the power of the feminine.
Yes.
The power that women put away. There's this like dark
the creativity, the drive to the stamina to get through the trials.
And women put this darkness away. They put away this creativity. They put away their feminine at a younger age because it's scary to men. And this is Bly. Like, I'm literally not like saying this. I'm not pulling this out of my butt. Like, this is Bly and this is Campbell and this is Murdoch. And, but they say, women put that away and men find this opportunity in their lives to go and take it. They take that and they take that power and they put it into themselves. Like, because if women aren't taking it up, then they will. Like, it's literally.
And it's the control of the feminine. This
the control of the feminine.
What this mythological, iterative mythology at Rhymes is saying. And there's been a lot of people who have compared Tristan and Isolde to what happens in the prequels, right?
Yeah.
The forbidden love, right? The forbidden love that happens.
Yes.
But what if, I'm going to bring it up, what if Padme was actually meant for Palpatine?
Yeah. I was thinking about that a lot because of this whole theory. It's, no one would go there because they're like, oh, well, she didn't have the Force.
No, I know. She didn't have the Force then. Maybe she's been reborn with it. Who knows, right? But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so I think that's really, really important. So it's not just something that helps heal, the masculine, right? So it helps heal the hero to be inspired to be who they need to be. But the feminine specifically realizes her own power in this, especially the ones where the stories that follow this trope, where she takes an action to save the day at the end. And there's lots of resurrection at the end of these stories, like Swan Lake. Tristan and Isolde has a version of resurrection that happens. There's, saving the day, bringing down the evil person that never really learns, right? They never really learn. I think that in Star Wars, redemption is always possible, so that might not end that way, but it's really, really hard for the evil old magician to learn from his ways. Right?
Yeah. Takes too long.
Yeah.
Takes years, I'm sure. This is actually something I struggled with for a long time. So I started writing fanfic like recently, and I started writing like really bad, terrible like male characters, and like I kind of wrestle with like, okay, well, how do I redeem them? And I basically started doing what a lot of people are doing with Raylo fanfic, from the very beginning. How do we redeem this person? And I kept going back to like, well, I'm just going to make him spend this many years kind of in exile.
That happens a lot in Raylo fic.
Happens a lot
because the love triangle is almost like a disliked trope.
Yeah.
Right? And the romantic rival is a disliked trope. And I'm not saying that the evil old magician though comes up all the time in our fiction. It is It is the thing that allows context. Right?
Yeah.
It allows the person who is needing to be redeemed or take the forefront, become the hero, to instantly be compared. Because Kylo is not actually that dark compared to Palpatine.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Like he's like, you can say that Kylo's compared to a Nazi because he's in control of the First Order, which was compared to Nazis by J.J. Abrams. But when you compare that to Palpatine.
Yeah. Palpatine, who is described as a black hole in the Force.
Yeah.
Right? So it's all context. Anybody compared to Palpatine is good.
I mean, that is essentially what we've been saying for a long time, to be honest, to be totally fair.
No, really.
Palpatine's like, we always said, like, I think we made a point one time that the real villains in Star Wars are the ones that don't wear a mask and they're bald and they're
ugly.
They're ugly.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's very fairy tale.
Palpatine. Yeah, it's very fairy tale.
Very, very, very fairy tale. So like this theory struck me. And yeah, it is a theory. I don't have proof for a ton of this stuff. I do have proof that Palpatine is present in the sequel trilogy in a few symbolic and meaningful ways. He is around. He's around. He's paying attention, and he has zero desire to have Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, succeed at anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't like that guy. We're going to talk about the Snoke scene in the throne room now.
Yes.
Because I feel like from a foreshadowing perspective, it is so foreshadowy. And it showed us a couple of important things. Rey is desired. She is powerful. She is young. She is feminine. Snoke says, just before this scene, the previous scene when he's talking with Kylo, you wonder why I keep this rabid cur around to Hux. And he says, a cur's weakness, properly manipulated, can turn into a sharp tool. Palpatine has always been there and manipulating potentially Snoke, potentially Ben, potentially the whole First Order, right? He's just been there. But he's now 100% Phantom Menace rather than like 99.9% Phantom Menace. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben shows up with Rey and Snoke's like, good job, young apprentice. I knew it. You came around even though I bridged your minds. And he drags her across the room with the Force and he touches her face in this very possessive. And women specifically saw this scene as violation, right? Compared to the interrogation scene, this is violation.
Yeah.
And he is creepy and he is old, and Andy Serkis did an amazing job. He says a couple of things, and I want to listen to that scene.
Ooh, let's do it.
You ready, Ty Black?
Yeah, let's do it. I can hear the theme music already.
Come closer, child. So much strength. Darkness rises and light to meet it. I warned my young apprentice that as he grew stronger, his equal in the light would rise.
Huh.
Huh.
I assumed.
Skywalker, I assumed. Wrongly.
Closer, I said.
Dragging her towards him. Underneath his chair at this scene. Go and watch it.
Solo and me.
You're wrong, she says. You can see the Imperial symbol underneath Snoke's chair.
A weakness.
Lit up in lights.
In my is that why you came?
You can start to hear the choral chime in.
Ooh.
Bridged your minds. I stoked Ren's conflicted soul. I knew he was not strong enough to hide it from you. And you were not wise enough to resist the bait.
Interesting.
Now, you will give me.
And he touches her face.
Ugh.
And gets like kissing distance apart.
With the closest stroke.
No.
Yes.
And he throws her up in the air and she's frozen. And he is
Everything.
torturing her. Palpatine is in this room. Because this is Palpatine's theme.
Yeah, and she's laying down. She's like, she's laying down in the air with her arms out, like completely vulnerable. It's a very sexual position that she is in.
Yes.
There's many ways that you can torture people, but there's very specific ways that you can torture women.
Yes. And Palpatine's theme played during that moment when she is up in the air being tortured.
Ba, ba, ba. Wait, is that what it is? What is it?
Ba, 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 ba. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So why? If not that he is already in the room. And I mentioned, and go and look at pictures of Snoke's throne. Underneath the Snoke is the Imperial cog.
So can I? Okay, so let's throw back here to like
Sure.
Ty and Marie-Claire's first ever recording together.
Oh, I don't remember anything. That was Last Jedi novelization.
Yeah, so we read the Last Jedi novelization, and one of the things that we like pointed out, which everybody pointed out because it was like, oh, this is interesting, was the little monologue that Snoke had.
Snoke's monologue. Yeah.
Of his clone, like about how like the clone army like worked, but he was like, oh, the like going out to the outer reaches and like taking children from their parents, like that was so much of a better idea when they couldn't make any more clones. It was basically the same thing. It was a good alternative to the clone army. And he literally used Palpatine's name and talked about this contingency plan. And we read this and we were like, this is weird. And then one of the main things I think we took from that was that, hey, the prequels are important. Like,
yeah, the prequels are important. They kept on saying like the prequels are important. This is one story. And we were like, okay, well, they're trying to connect Snoke somehow. Why? Okay.
And a lot of people thought like for a long time, oh, Snoke is a puppet of Palpatine. But from this perspective, he's more than a puppet of Palpatine in a plot way. He's literally like a foreshadow of like why Palpatine is going to want to control Rey in the way that he's going to do. Like
because she is more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
She is Palpatine's equal in the light.
Yeah.
Because he is the ultimate darkness in the galaxy, not Kylo.
I think like this is where like Leia actually would have played like a gigantic role in the third film.
Mm-hmm.
Because like she would have been the connection from the very beginning. Like she would have been that feminine connection. I mean, obviously we know Padme is going to be there, but Leia had the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would have instilled that into Rey.
I think we're going to get that like with the hug and with the moments that they have together. I think
so.
We're going to get something from that. Yeah.
But that's going to be like the connection of like, we literally go from like not having the feminine be represented enough in the original trilogy. Leia's like this character that almost needs to be redeemed in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
The character, like as in like the writing of the character, needs to be redeemed in a weird way. And then you go from that to going to this dark power being explained in the prequel trilogy, and then have those two elements almost combine to solve and balance and redeem and justify everything from a story perspective to a meta perspective. It's like
it does everything. It fixes the missing feminine in the characters. It fixes the missing feminine in the saga. It fixes the missing feminine in the story and in the fandom. It brings back the missing feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is fundamentally important to like acknowledge that that's what they're trying to say, is that they're trying to do what myth does, which is retell the story for a new generation so that they can try to iterate it and make it better and more apropos for the day.
Absolutely. And they're not doing it through like weird political messaging. They're literally telling a
fairy tale
story. It's a fairy tale. It's like literally like it goes back to so many classic fairy tales. Like fairy tales are just telling the same story over and over and over again. Like that's all is. They're not telling us a political message. They're telling us something that we need to know that's really important, that's been passed down throughout all of time.
Yes, which is that, and we talked about this a little bit in the Minotaur episode, that the Minotaur myth was co-opted by the patriarchy.
Yes.
And in some ways, we need to go back and re-remember our stories differently to enable ourselves to change. And this brings me to the Isis and Osiris myth, which is the same story again.
Yeah. With a fun reincarnation twist.
Yes. So Osiris is the king of the netherworld. He makes the decision on whether somebody will end up in kind of hell or reconnecting with the divine and joining the source. And in the source in Egyptian mythology is basically the force. It's the prime power. Mm-hmm. That was the Cliff's Notes. I'm sure we'll get back to it at some point. Set, his brother, the representation of evil in Egyptian mythology, is jealous of both his power and the fact that his wife, Set's wife, pretended to be Isis and slept with Osiris. Betrayed him, right? The betrayal factor is heavy on the evil old magician's mind. He is constantly feeling like he is betrayed by the young maiden. So Set kills Osiris, just kills him and locks him into a coffin and sends him down the Nile. He is still kind of alive because gods never really die, but he's in a coffin. Isis finds him and brings him back to life. Set kills him again. It's like, that wasn't good enough. And cuts him into 14 pieces and spreads them all throughout Egypt. Isis collects every single piece. And to put him back together, she needs to remember his physicality and who he was and what he was all about to pull him back together. And she removes his penis in this. Because it was sacred and there was he needed to be remembered differently, but he is more feminine after he is remembered, right? Okay. This is all symbolic, guys, as all myth is, right? So,
yeah.
But the important thing about this myth is two things. The feminine pulls him back together, right? He was missing in pieces, and the re-remembering you in a different way is what's important, is how we use fiction and story to remember ourselves differently and thus change from a collective unconscious perspective.
Expound.
Okay. Telling the same myth again and again for a new generation allows us to correct the mistakes of the past and be remembered, i.e. see ourselves differently. It is how we grow as humans.
So,
as humanity.
I love this aspect of it being a part of Kylo's journey to remember
who he is.
Yes.
But also, this ties into reverse Anadala.
Yeah. So can I like point out though, like what I always go back to again?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
So like, just like I said earlier about how like Kylo doesn't want power. What I was eventually going to get to, which this is.
Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. I kind of forgot my train of thought, to be honest, but because I do that. But because now that we have this Osiris myth in our heads now, Kylo is obsessed with like I said earlier, he's obsessed with like purpose. Like, what is his purpose? But we also know that he gets to see the past and like a lot of visions that he has, or at least it's implied that he sees the past in a lot of the visions that he has of Rey when they touch hands, or maybe not when they touch hands necessarily, but he does tell her in the elevator, I saw who your parents were.
I saw your past.
I saw your past. Yeah. And then he says like, what girl, as if he's met her before, as if he's seen her before, like he's had visions of her before. Like there's this connection that he has to the helmet, to the past. And there's this idea of like the sins of the father, which is something that's very male oriented. Like, is he going to commit the same sins as his father or his grandfather? And what we keep seeing with Kylo in this pattern is that he wants to know the past. He wants to know his past. So by gathering pieces of him, Rey is helping him to find his past.
So C-3PO, R2-D2, the helmet, conversation, something from Leia, right? Gathering the memories of who he is.
And we have to say though, because like this is Anakin is what we're getting at. But it's also telling him that you don't have to be like Anakin.
Yes, you are not Anakin. You're going to remember you differently.
Right. you can correct that. You can fix that. You can be your own person. You don't have to go down the same path. And even if you have gone down to the same path at some level, like you can always fix that now.
Which is so hopeful. It's how redemption actually happens, and resurrection from a spiritual sense.
Yeah.
You remember yourself differently. And it's very Buddhist. It's forward from today. You remember yourself differently. That's so powerful.
That's beautiful. That's the only way anyone can overcome their past things that they've done. You remember it differently. Yeah.
So I do want to bring up kind of a couple of the Darth Sidious other influences that we've seen kind of in the sequel trilogy, and one EU reference that I just want to read out. So there's a Legends comic called Dark Empire, and this happens kind of after the Thrawn arc of the EU. So this I'm pulling out this Legends thing, but there's a prophecy.
It's huge.
Part of the prophecy refers to a Jedi killer who was, as we know, the original name of Kylo.
How do we never see this before is like beyond me.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So the part of the prophecy says, a Jedi killer wants to tame her. The dark side lord comes to claim her.
What the fuck?
She must join against this thief, or dynasty of all Jedi will come to grief. Claim is such a word.
It's so obvious.
Claim is literally, I want to force a young woman into a situation that she does not want to be in. She is an object.
Come to claim her. That is, like, literally there's no other meaning behind it.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies because it's the Dark Lord, the Dark Side Lord. There's one Dark Side Lord.
Yeah.
Right? There's one. So, and this is, like Palpatine was like cloning and stuff like that, and he jumping clone bodies, and eventually C-3PO kills him, which is kind of cool. So maybe that's what the eyeballs mean.
Red
I don't
eyes.
know.
There you go.
I don't know.
You solved it.
I think it's more that there's going to be a memory in him, and there's something about that. Because C-3PO carries the story, so does R2-D2. So both of them have pieces of Anakin in them, which is important for a collection of Ben's soul.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's, yeah. Immediately when I saw the red eyes, I thought, oh, Anakin.
So let's talk about the sizzle trailer.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about Dark Gray.
Yeah, that was going to be my big, the last thing I wanted to bring up as well.
There's a few kind of other things to do with kind of some other little bits and bobs that I want to bring up. But let's talk about her. So she is... dark, looks robotic to me, paler skin. She definitely learned how to contour.
Yeah.
She went back to the space Sephora, got the full package. And she's in a dress.
Yeah.
She is the ultimate representation of feminine power.
Yeah. Which is why so many women are latching onto it and loving it.
She's in a dress and she's powerful.
Yeah.
Yes. But... Okay. She is wearing a Naboo designer special. And I tweeted this out when I saw it because to me, I instantly said to myself, this is how Palpatine would dress his bride or a doll, which is the same thing in his mind.
Yeah.
This is purposely chosen. And costuming of everything in the saga is so purposeful. It is wacky purposeful.
Yeah.
Right? Symbolically, almost everything that we see ties to some other meaning. Sometimes words don't always mean what we think they mean, and sometimes but costuming is always on point with some sort of meaning. It looks like Padme Amidala's dress that she wore during Padme's ruminations, where she stared across Coruscant at her husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's silky and sexy.
Yeah.
Why is she in a silky and sexy dress with a red lightsaber? Okay, well, we actually see this trope before. Good thing we know what the story is now.
Not that you have like a big head or anything from figuring it out. Watch
Do I?
No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I really hope I don't, because like it's just, it feels very satisfactory to know what is going on now, and that it lines up to a story that we are comfortable with cheering our hero, and we are cheering for our heroine, and we're cheering for them to get together because it's in the symbolism of them coming together, they ultimately overcome the dark evil magician.
I'll say this as well to add to that, because like it doesn't have to be that Palpatine literally says, "I'm going to marry you." It's a
dark union.
Yeah, like it can literally just be like, you're going to be by my side.
You are by my side forever,
right.
Which is symbolic marriage too, right?
Yes.
Like that is, it is representational and it is possessive. That is the key. It doesn't necessarily
as long
need
as
to be
it's
a
possessive.
marriage.
As long as it's possessive,
yeah.
Ben will see that.
For her feminine power. That is the key.
Right. Because Ben will see that, just like he looked at Rey when she was being tortured by Snoke. He had that look in his eyes like, I don't like this.
I'm going to kill you.
Look at this. Yeah, and he couldn't look at it. He couldn't look at her. He could not bear to look at her because of what was happening. And that's going to be a similar thing with Palps, except he's going to have a murderous reaction right away. Probably.
But my good friend, Raven Maiden, when I told her this idea, said, "Oh, that's what he's using Matt Smith for."
I love this theory.
Okay, so we've heard rumors Matt Smith is in the movie. So what if Sheev Palpatine made himself a slightly younger, sexy Matt Smith body?
Can I just say I read like a fanfic yesterday of a young Palpatine and Rey. Like
there's like two of them on the internet. I don't know how you found them.
Well, because you sent them to me,
because I linked them to you. Because immediately when I came up with this theory, I'm like, this 2 number, this is gonna be different after Tross comes out. There's gonna be like 20 of them at least.
I seriously though, like, so they're gonna have to use like Ian McDermott because he was there, like at Celebration.
No, but it's just his voice in Matt Smith's body.
Oh,
yeah.
That could be amazing.
Right?
I'm willing to buy it because I love Matt Smith that much. Like, I'm willing to buy anything that he does.
A lot of people were like, he's totally Palpatine's clone. But let's remember that Palpatine has shown himself in canon, in Rebels, to be a younger, more ideal version of himself. Dude, we make a lot of assumptions about cloning and stuff like that being the answer. The Force is always the answer.
Yeah.
For Palpatine.
Well, and the absurdity of Palpatine, like the lengths that he will go, it's ridiculous. Like he made himself
here's this robot. Temple I brought from another place that allows you to go back in time, Ezra. All you gotta do is open the world between worlds. I'm gonna tempt you because he is the great deceiver too.
Yeah.
Right? And this brings me to what I think Rey might be in a moment. But yeah. But most importantly, I actually do think he's going to be a romantic rival. I think that creeps out me so much that as much as I loved Kylo and Rey together, I want them to be together even more to stick it to him.
I agree. I'm right there with you. It's just very satisfying.
Yes, it's satisfying. And that is how many people who have seen or heard about the movie have been describing it.
Yeah.
So how does this feel satisfying? Well, culturally, it is satisfying. It is the story we tell ourselves. Yeah. It is the one story. This is the one story we tell ourselves over and over and over and over again.
Golly.
Is that good conquers over evil because of love. All right.
That's crazy.
Who is Dark Rey? It doesn't matter.
You're insane.
No, it's seriously in Star Wars. It doesn't matter, because if she is symbolically her shadow, something she sees in a mirror, like Phantom of the Opera showing Christine the mirrored version of herself in the bridal dress, and she faces the sexual desires to be with the Phantom, etc., and that power and that comfort of never being alone, because that's what he offers her. He offers her never being alone, right? Which is important to Rey, because that is the thing that she desires the most, is to be understood for her power. And so comforted, understood. The darkness understands you, Rey, because the darkness is feminine. And, that's what the Phantom says to Christine. The darkness understands you. Stay with me in the darkness. So mirrored version of Rey, vision, something. Black Swan version of Rey. So Swan Lake, again, is a offshoot of Tristan and Isolde. The Black Swan is the dark magician's daughter, transformed to look like Odette, the princess, to trick the hero, to fall in love with her and break the heroine's heart. Could be a clone, could look like her, doesn't matter. Same story function.
Yeah.
It literally does not matter what Dark Rey is. She represents the heroine's shadow and desire to be wanted.
But it's not necessarily for her.
Yes, it's not necessarily for her. In Swan Lake, it was for the hero to be tricked.
Right.
Right? And in Phantom of the Opera, it was to face her darkness.
It was to face her darkness.
And desires.
But it was,
So I don't know what's going to happen, because the symbolism of what needs to happen, that confronting the shadow version of of Rey, is something that will happen because it is in the trope. It is in the story.
Right.
But I don't know what it will be used for from a plot perspective.
Right.
Necessarily.
Yeah. And I always go back to the fact that it's more so for Ben, just because I feel like Rey has dealt with her darkness in that way. I feel like she's been faced with the idea of giving herself power.
Well, I mean, it would be cool if it was a very Black Swan situation.
I like the Black Swan situation. I even like it if, like, I don't know, like, I even like it if, like, it were to be a vision of the future where Rey went down the dark path and became dark, and Palpatine pulled that thread back and showed Ben, like, what was going to happen in order to pull him down, like.
Well, and the thing is, Palpatine wants to discard Ben. And this is important. He
wants to trick Ben.
He wants to trick him or discard him or get rid of him. And this is a common thread in the, Dark Union storytelling. I'm using that as the name for it because it's just so common. There isn't even really a name for this.
Right.
Three-way dark magician, wants the maiden for her power.
Yeah. I don't think that Palpatine could manipulate Rey by
showing her a dark version of herself. I don't think that's necessary. I think, I mean, okay, so let's take a sidestep and talk a little bit about, because maybe this will help us sort out what we think will happen in Tross. But during the snow fight in TFA, in the novelization, Rey is standing. Reylos love to pull this out, so you guys all know what this is. But in the novelization, Rey is standing over Kylo after slashing his face open, and she has this swell of power, and she hears clearly in her head, "Kill him." Who says that?
It's obviously Palpatine.
Palpatine has said it twice before.
Yeah.
Every time he's about to take on a new apprentice. Right. So probably Palpatine, knowing that we know he's back. Also, there's lots of symbolism about him kind of being present in the atmosphere of the storytelling. And Luke Skywalker brought up, it's like saying Voldemort. He said Voldemort's name. He said Darth Sidious in The Last Jedi. Okay. Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku?
That came out of nowhere. Wait, are you going to bring up the whole, the observatory?
No, I'm actually just going to talk about why Rey doesn't want to leave.
Do you think Palpatine's manipulating her not to?
Yeah. I think that she didn't want to leave because the longer that she was isolated, the more vulnerable she was. I think that if he showed up in Matt Smith's body and said, "I can give you purpose. I understand you, and I will be your partner and companion," she would have gone with him instantly when he showed up on Jakku if she was still there.
Damn it.
But fate has intervened and caused her, like in all of these stories, fate always intervenes between the dark evil magician wanting to marry the maiden. The young buck shows up. Good, bad, doesn't have his life together, is a jerk. He shows up and puts a kink in the plan.
So can I just say
Yes.
that fanfic literally was like Palpatine was trapped in like the ruins of like the ships. Like he had a clone that was like trapped on the ruins of the ships that crashed over Jakku.
Huh.
And it was like frozen in time, and she discovered it and she took care of him. And as he was like living with her, he began to like stroke her like connection to the Force.
Ooh.
And yeah, like, so that's how that happened. And I have to say that this was written like back in TFA times.
It was like 2016, like early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like women tapped into this in a weird way already without recognizing it, because God knows if there was one, there's got to be another. There's something that is interesting about Rey being dark. Her dark side reminds us of Palpatine more than it reminds us of any other dark side user in the saga. It's not Darth Vader, right?
Yep. And a lot of people were like, she's Rey Palpatine. No. She's his bride, dude.
Yeah. There's been some theories of her being his daughter.
His daughter. No. She's his maiden bride.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, that voice that she's had in her head, like it's tapping into it. I wonder if that was through.
I need to go back to Jakku. And we hear his, Palpatine is in her Force vision.
Yep.
We hear his scream as he's killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This has been a topic.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what do we think is going to happen? I think it's going to be a confrontation. I agree with you. I think it's probably for Ben, and in a way, maybe to get him to give up. Maybe like that's what the Black Swan did is tried to get him to be tricked into going with her and breaking Odette's heart so that she would finally accept the dark, evil old magician.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe. There's something to be said that he does not want Kylo to be successful with Rey.
Yeah, I love that idea. Like when you first presented this, you were like, he's just mad that Kylo keeps getting in the way. And I'm like, oh my God, like he literally sees what the Reylos have been seeing this whole time. Like, there's a romance happening between Rey and Kylo. And Palpatine's like young Skywalker, dadgummit, keep getting in my way, like keep foiling my plans.
And that goes back to that Snoke scene we listened to a little bit earlier. You know, as the light rises, Skywalker, I assumed incorrectly, is kind of like, Like, what do you think is going on in the galaxy, Snoke, and why couldn't you see Palpatine? Is it because he was too black?
I think that Palpatine is stuck. He only has like a certain amount of doors he can see through, right? And he can't, like, Snoke is not communicating with him and he's not communicating with Snoke. He left some sort of contingency plan behind, and that's the only way. Like, just like with Battlefront 2, I think. Battlefront 1 or Battlefront 2, I can't remember. But like the idea was like Palpatine was there and he had like a clone. No, it wasn't clone. Sorry. It was a like robot that was imbued with a program, and it looked like him. It was like dressed like him. It had like this like face that was basically like a television screen that showed his face, which is so weird. But yeah, like he just left behind these like recordings basically.
So like shadows of himself.
Yeah. But then when he was in whatever afterlife he experienced, he's probably gained more knowledge.
I mean, Sith like hang on to objects, right? So they are part of objects, and he disappeared into his blue smoke, etc. I don't know if I want to go back at this point into what I think Palpatine is right now, because I don't think that's the important question. I think we need to ask, what is Palpatine want? Well, and how is he going to get it? And that's what we answered.
That's what I was going to get at, was that I think that Rey and Ben are going to royally F up, and the ultimate mistake they're going to make is that they're going to accidentally bring Palpatine back.
Right. Through their misunderstanding of each other.
Exactly.
No, that's a really good point. I think that fits with a lot of the story. They bring on the rise of the evil. Their mistakes, and then they must come together to fix them.
Yeah. Like, hey, we messed up. Like we have to solve this. This is not good for either of us. Like,
It's not good for us. No.
yeah, everybody was always wondering, like, how are they going to team up against Hux? Well, they're not going to team up against Hux. They're going to team up.
Hux is getting a redemption.
I hope so.
Or it's of sorts. It's going to be something because it comes out more and more that he also is a troubled youth, a beat up kid. He wants to kill the galaxy because he was hurt. It's all the same morality, right? How do you get past the trauma of the past? How do you move forward? How do you remember yourself differently? Well, it's all context.
Yeah, it's all.
On a side note, and this is maybe the last thing, unless you have some other thoughts.
Might be good. Depends on what you say.
Oh, this was on a completely, sprinkles on top of this delicious cake we just baked. John Williams' favorite romantic theme is from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde.
Yeah.
Maybe not important. Maybe we'll hear a Rayla love theme that is inspired by Tristan and Isolde.
I think it's really cool that this like theme, this whole like trope and everything is like the only reason why we couldn't see the other villain, I guess, the actual villain, is because we were so involved in our own feminine fantasy of connecting with our own darkness.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Expand on that a little bit.
Well, I think that a lot of women are trapped in The Last Jedi's understanding of femininity in a way. Like, Rey goes and she like descends and she comes out of it angry at Luke and she doesn't face Luke again. Like, she leaves Luke angry and she fights Snoke and Snoke's guards and she fights against the control over her, and she does go back to like her family and she embraces them and she acknowledges Luke's death, but she doesn't face Luke again. So there's that. The end of the heroine's journey needs to be obviously done.
So what are I know that you just did an excellent video, which I will link to, but what are the last steps that we still need to do? Because maybe this will help us think through what we'll see in with this new information about, okay, we have the structure of what Rey is going to experience in addition to some of the plot motivation from an evil adversary perspective, right? Because in some ways people view not just death of the universe as enough, but there needs to be personal motivation, and this gives Rey tons of personal motivation to resist Age of Resistance, the bad guy. So what are the last steps that we think Rey still needs to go through in The Rise of Skywalker?
She has to explore her, like, she has to connect with her feminine a little bit more. Like, she's not quite there yet. She's done it a little bit, but there's this idea of reconnecting with like your mother, like either your actual mother or and that's why I honestly think that we're going to get Rey's actual mom in Tross. People will like
fight you on that one.
Yeah, like I don't care. People can fight me every day. I don't care. I think she's gonna meet her mom.
Like the key is that it could be symbolic, right? So
it could be. I also think
she learns about her mother in a way, and so understands her mother.
I've also like kind of developed my theory of like, well, maybe she meets someone who knew her mom and tells her about her mom. So that could be. That
also fits the need of the story.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. So that could fit like Carrie's character. But then she has to come to terms with that. She has to come to terms with like her mom was her mom and her mom did this and that. And like, no matter what she does, like she's going to have a part of that inside of her. And also that she has the ability to have children and that she has the ability to pass on what her parents have done to her kids. And the reality of like passing on the good and the bad is going to have to become apparent to her. And so the next step after that is kind of reintegrating the masculine and coming to terms with she has a destructive part inside of her. So that's the dark part that is going to come back. And that goes back to Dark Rey. It's like, yeah, that could be her, But
yeah, she has power is the most important thing. She has power and she's desired for her power that could destroy the universe if controlled by Palpatine.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's going to be more subtle.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be like,
that is fulfilled by, if you join me, we will have the ultimate power in the galaxy.
Exactly. Once you bring this Dark Union idea into it, you're saying Rey's going to reject Palpatine's control over her because she's not going to want the power as much as she's going to want her own autonomy to be her own person and move beyond duality, which is that next step. And she's going to want, and also that's going to be her realization of like her true animus, is not Palpatine. It's
Ben.
It's Ben. So she's going to want to reject Palpatine in favor of Ben, which again gives us that killing 3 or 4 or 5 birds with one stone. And it's that romantic storyline as well as it is.
Because the ultimate acceptance of a male for a woman in a heteronormative relationship is love. Yeah. Acceptance of that love, kissing, and marriage or union, right? So it's the rejecting of the Dark Union for the place that she belongs.
The sacred.
The sacred divine union.
Yes. Yeah. She's going to realize that, and that's going to push her into the last step, which is moving beyond duality, which is essentially the entire point of Campbell's hero's journey. Murdoch just took the words and said that's the last step, is moving beyond duality.
Yeah. And is to be integrated and balanced.
And be your own person and figure out your own path and like know what you want. And
the ability to choose.
Yeah. And that's very Lucas.
Yeah.
It's very Lucas. But yeah.
I like it.
Emotional.
I mean, it's touching. It fills all of the things. It's very logical, actually, when you break it down. And one of the things I love about this is we might get a parallel to Han Solo saying to Ben, Snoke, he wants you for your power. He's going to use you up and then discard you. We might get Ben Solo saying that to Rey. He wants you for your power. Palpatine, he wants you for your power. Imagine him trying to plead with Dark Rey, even if that's not her.
Even if that's not her. And that's the thing, right? It means so much either way.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, it actually doesn't matter from a story perspective. It really doesn't. She could be a clone. She could be, a vision. She could be Rey transformed and she's powerless to see this or whatever. Yeah. She could be possessed. She could be, it does the same thing, which is a confrontation. That is the key. The confrontation with the dark. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's cool. I think it's cool. It's interesting. We get a lot of potential from a forever, memory perspective of what this whole saga means, which is it's about love.
Yeah.
And it's about love. This is a really great follow-up to almost every single one of our episodes.
Yeah, definitely. It like combines everything that we've ever talked about.
I know, except for Mines. But, hey, if it happens on Mustafar and then suddenly out of this success and the lifting of the sickness of the galaxy, i.e. Palpatine, it causes a rebirth to happen of all of the mining planets.
I was going to say, we basically brought up Mines because, first of all, you brought up Jakku. And second of all, we'll talk about Vader Immortal sometime after the second one. Wait, the second one comes out before.
Yeah, we don't know when it comes out. It's not been. We don't know the release.
Well, the next. Yeah.
Yeah, the next episode.
We also still have more comics as well.
Tons and tons of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're putting our flag in the sand, I guess, and saying this is what the mythology is telling us. Which again,
this is why
Joseph Campbell's favorite story is Tristan and Isolde. Why?
And if you want to bet that George Lucas and Joseph Campbell talked at the Skywalker Ranch about this myth, I would bet money on it.
And about what it meant, which is the missing feminine regaining power. That's what it is all about.
Yeah.
Love over required union.
Yeah.
Fini. All right. That's it. That's what we've got. All right, Ty. Thank you
So funny.
again for coming on the show and helping me do this and getting this out of my head. I feel so much better knowing it's out there in the universe.
Yeah. I'm glad we did this in like a somewhat decent amount of time. I'm kidding. I would stay with you for another hour if that's what it took.
No, I know, but I think we did it very successfully.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Twitter at @black_TYM or on YouTube at Wit and Folly. And share my stuff.
Yeah, share her stuff. She's brilliant. She does the best YouTube videos I've ever seen from, an analysis visual essay perspective. So
thank you.
That's why you're always coming back no matter what. And I don't say this enough, but Ty is a very integral part of What the Force. She helps me plan. She helps me stay on target. She does all of the thumbnails, the beautiful images that we see when we release stuff. And most importantly, she's my best friend.
Aw, yeah. Marie-Claire's my bestie. She does a lot of stuff for me too. Not What the Force related.
All right, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is the What the Force theme, orchestral music by Christy Carew. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love What the Force: Night Huntress in Wild Space, Susan, Kathy, and Cassandra Corvid. We are available on iTunes, Google Play, and other podcatchers, including YouTube. If you would like to support the show in other ways, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. You can connect to us on Twitter at What the Force Show. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.